Ago, I was here with the group. I was coming from Lunenburg. I came in the other way, and on the way out, I was talking to John Campbell, who owns the Sou'wester where we are, and on the way out, we saw an ambulance go by. Wow, a guy was saved. He fell into the water on the ocean side. John happened to know that he was coming into his restaurant. He heard it. He ran down and got a guy who has a tour boat. He just had come in with a tour, and John knew he was there. He'd gone and he took his boat around. It was a very, very rough day. And somebody else was there with a camera. This is Dover, and you'll see fish shacks. That's important. You see this shack? You can pull most of these. The fishermen can pull up to their wharf, offload their gear, and then be on the land. So the fish shack juts out into the water. One artist at Peggy's Cove was a man by the name of William DeGarth. He went to Peggy's Cove in the 1930s and fell in love. He fell in love with Peggy, and he fell in love with Agnes and stayed there. He didn't have a place to live, and he stayed in a fish shack for the summers for many years. And eventually, in 1953, he was able to buy in. Agnes bought a property in Peggy's Cove, and outside his door is a wall of rock. And as we turn this corner, you're going to see what I mean by walls of rock. DeGarth was a painter. He had this wall of rock in his backyard, and he wanted to do something with it, but he didn't know what to do. He went to Florence in Italy and studied sculpting, and he came home and sculpted what he calls the Fisherman's Monument on this rock. And he commemorates, there's a captain at the bow of the ship, there's an angel overseeing the fishermen, saying that the people in Peggy's Cove appreciate that fishing is extremely dangerous, and they have a good relationship with the Lord, and the Lord with them. So very important there. On your right, that's freshwater, brackish. Oh, I can see it's quite rough, so it'll be rough at Peggy's Cove. Brackish, often in April, early May, late September, mid-September to late September to October, we have foreign birds flying by. Because we jump out into the Atlantic, birds on their migratory route to the north pass over here. We often see them in this area at this time of year. They don't stay. They're either living winter down south and summer up north. Until recently, this is their part of their path, but they don't generally stay. But and I said they're not Canadian geese. Their name is Canada geese, and they don't have passports.
Canadians.
The golf course is where they have problems. Now, this is the first of the signs. It'll say right here, danger. Both sides of the road, danger. Sudden high waves. Drowning hazard, keep off black rocks. People don't see that.
Or
they don't believe
see it. They don't
care. They don't believe it. So you can imagine the challenges of living here.
Look how far it took us to get here.
Yes, and that's when there were no roads.
Yeah.
Now, Jed, if there's no traffic behind us when we get to the Garth Monument, can you just slow down there so they can see it? A danger here with this DeGarth Monument is that tourists coming, don't realize over this hill there will be people often crossing the road. So this is a tricky spot. Over your right shoulder in just a moment is the DeGarth Monument. This was DeGarth's house. He looked out his back door and saw this wall of rock, which is behind you. But that's where the Beale family, with the crossover of the artsy side and the fishing side. This is a wonderful view of the cove, but it's not low tide, and I want to point out something just as we get around. I'll show you another perspective. To come into this cove in rough seas, you've got to be a good sailor, because the rocks don't go straight down. They come like this. They're at low tide, it's very narrow, and you can see that. At high tide, you don't know that that's not that width all the way through.
She's ugly out there today.
It is ugly today. Now, some days you can come here and it's absolutely calm as glass. And people say, is it always like that? No. Is it always like this? No. Every day is different, just as it is at your house.
I close my eyes for this.
Yes, and I'm glad Jen is driving. This is where I don't look too hard. Woohoo! That's St. Margaret's Bay. It's often, like I say, smooth as glass. So you can't miss the signs. Sudden high waves. Look at that.
Yeah.
This is one of the most dramatic days I've seen here.
Really, eh?
Have voluntarily painted that, and when they did it the last time, they said we can't put scaffolding up because people want to come and take pictures. So they hung ropes from the lighthouse and painted from that so they wouldn't intrude on visitors' pictures. They did it all for free. It needs doing again. You can appreciate that it really does suffer from the weather.
Of course.
On a clear day, just so you get your bearings, straight across there is Buckingham Palace. On a clear day, you can see what the Queen is having for breakfast. I've never been here on quite that clear a day, but you can appreciate the danger of the rocks as well as the, growing up here, I didn't see this as beautiful. Now I understand why it's like this. I do. My favorite sign, by the way, embedded in the rock is right there, and it says, you can't hardly see, danger. Warning, death and injury have rewarded careless sightseers here.
Rewarded.
That was an early sign.
But again, people don't read that. They don't believe it.
And you can also appreciate why people say, oh, they should put a fence around it. What? Where?
Where exactly?
At Hurricane Juan, the RCMP was at the top of the road keeping people out, and people sneaked in the side way. They wanted the pictures. There's a lobsterman coming back from either setting his traps or checking his traps.
To jest prawda, prawda, prawda. Dużo ludzi zginęło tutaj, bo nie przestrzegali zasad. No i tutaj jest wspaniała Peggy's Cove, wspaniała latarnia. Także miałam tutaj okazję być, jak był przepiękny zachód słońca, i ciepło, i pomarańczowe niebo. No dzisiaj wygląda właśnie to tak. Zupełnie inna historia. Look at those seas, eh? Holy, they moving. It's definitely one of the most beautiful places in Canada, right? I always love this place. Śniadanie tutaj. Bardzo głośno. Jesteśmy w Peggy's Cove. No i tak tutaj wygląda śniadanie. I'm gonna speak Polish if you guys don't mind. Ja mam fasolkę z takimi fish cakes, czyli plackami ziemniaków i z ryby. Nie wiem czemu mam puszkę. Ziemniaków i z ryby. I zielone pomidory. A oni mają takie normalne. Czyli jajecznice, boczek, ziemniaki. Takie są porcje właśnie w Kanadzie. To jest jakby dla 3 osób. You guys ordered the same thing. Everybody ordered the same thing. I'm the only one that I'm like out of the line.
We're still looking for Peggy for all these years.
Yeah, Peggy's been lost at seas. Jaki ocean dzisiaj jest zły, niespokojny.
That says everybody has to be sitting. I talked about how dangerous fishing is, and that's implied in DeGarth's monument, which we will drive by slowly up here. We saw it on the way in. But certainly that's not the only danger. You know, there are dangerous things in the world, and we had in 1996 a very serious issue with a plane that went down, 1998 I think.
1998.
1998. I'm just going to look to see, I didn't notice on the way in. The pitcher plant is the provincial plant for Newfoundland, and it grows in very rough, rocky soil. But and they bloom usually in June, and I'm not sure, there's a bunch of them bloom right down here in this bog, and they're not in bloom yet. Oh yes, they are. Those little red ones right down there on the edge of the water. They're just beginning. Pitcher plants are carnivorous. That doesn't mean if you stick your finger in, the plant's going to gobble it up. But woe betide any fly or mosquito that lands in it, because it will be consumed. We're turning left here. And one of the things, when I was talking about dangers, the Swiss Air flight in 1998, was a plane coming across from New York to Geneva. Nothing to do with us at all. It had a lot of United Nations people on it, full load of fuel. And as these planes come, because of the shape of the globe and so on, they come up, follow the coastline, and then go across the narrowest part. So they come up from New York, up along the coast. As the pilot was coming across the Gulf of Maine, coming into Nova Scotia territory, a fire broke out in the cockpit, and he had several choices. He could either fly to Halifax International Airport with a full load of fuel and a fire, or he could circle and try to jettison that fuel, which is what he did.
Yeah, right.
Either one, he probably made the best choice, but unfortunately the plane went down in this fog we can't see, just off the coast here, and all 229 people were killed. Had he gone to Halifax, he might have crashed before he got to the airport and crashed over a densely populated area. Who knows? But there's a monument to that coming up on our left, just past a rock we call the Whale's Back, and you'll see what that is. The monument was designed with this in mind. It is not a tourist destination. Swiss Air, the provincial government, and the victims' families all decided they did not want motor coaches going in there. So yes, we could drive in, but we'd probably spend an hour trying to twist and turn to get in and out because it's so tight. So we definitely never go in with a motor coach. It's designed, it's got like two pieces of polished granite coming together like a clamshell, and one of them has 3 ones carved into it because it's Swiss Air Flight 111. And we'll see it just, and Jed has to determine this with traffic conditions and so on. He may be able to slow down. I can see a little bit of the rock there, but this is the Whale's Back coming up on our left. And just as we get to the end of that, you can see why it's called the Whale's Back.
Yeah.
You'll be able to look in and see it. And it's a meandering path. It's not even a direct path, because what they were looking for was a serene walk across the rocks as you're pondering the accident.
There you go. Swiss Air entrance.
Coming, that's
Yeah.
and it's the vertex of a triangle. If that's the vertex of one vertex, there's another one at the lighthouse at Peggy's Cove. There's no monument, but that would be the other point. And the other point of the triangle is where the plane went down.
Yeah. It's a very peaceful place.
It's very peaceful. It's serene. It was 1998. 3 years later. Oh, I'll go back to 1998. The folks here you know, the international media was here. It was United Nations people. And the place was shut down. There was no more fishing down in the bay. The fishermen they ended up retrieving body parts, which was something terribly devastating to them. Suffered from that for many years. Very, very difficult. Local people took in family members because there was no hotels here. Families came from around the world in hopes that there's no survivor. There's no survivor. But maybe there's a survivor. You can imagine that internal angst that would be so
Until you
painful.
know the body is later.
And body parts were retrieved. That was the tragedy. It had to be identified. Oh, it was awful. But some of those people were welcomed into local homes, and further friendships have resulted from that terrible, terrible tragedy. Then 3 years later, in Nova Scotia, well, not in Nova Scotia, when we had Swiss Air, people opened their doors again. And I'll tell you, at that time, I was teaching, I heard at noon hour, not Swiss Air, 9/11. With the Twin Towers coming down, I heard at recess, at noon, I was home, heard on the radio that if anybody had room to take in some of the people, everybody had to come out of the air. Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, both, the airports were chock-a-block, nose to tail with planes. I called to say I had space to take somebody in. I couldn't get through, had to go back to school. Called at 3:30, everybody who needed to be taken care of was taken care of. It happened that quickly. Now, having said that, I want you to realize they weren't all taken care of in private homes because, again, the pressure it was so terrifying. A lot of people were traveling in groups and they wanted to stay with their groups. So church basements, school gymnasiums, the Red Cross brought in beds and people stayed there for several days. Certainly a lot of people went to private homes, but a number of them were housed in larger numbers. But it happened very, very quickly.